What am I forgetting?
Usisahau kucheza Loto Moto. Unaweza shinda hadi milioni 2 kwenye M-Pesa. Chagua lipa na M-Pesa. Paybill number weka 757070. Account number weka neno Moto. Kisha weka star na nambari yako ya simu. Weka kiwango chochote cha pesa kuanzia shilingi 50 hadi 2000. Lipa kisha subiri draw. Ujumbe huu umeidhinishwa na BCLP.
Our investigations unit had reached an important conclusion. A scam in which mysterious people, including dead ones, apparently sued the government parastatal, won cases against it, and received millions of shillings. The millions are now the subject of a never-ending saga at the state agency and also the subject of this investigation. This is the death certificate of Gideon Kipsigei Tanui. Gideon passed away in 2002 at the age of 38. Eliakim Owala listed him as client number 90. He had been a clerk at LBDA since 1986. This is another death certificate in the name of Christine Adhiambo Obiero, who died in September 2010 in Nyalenda. Adhiambo Wasiama Immaculate died in Nyalenda in 2006 at the age of 47. She appeared in court listed as client number 16, though this is 15 years after her death. We have a death certificate for Erastus Auma Okode with the number 106863. Erastus, who died on May 3rd, 2006 at the Homa Bay District Hospital, had been retrenched from the Lake Basin Development Authority, where he worked for 18 years. Lawyer Eliakim Owala presented his name as client number 11 in the Kisumu Employment and Labor Relations Court. Another death certificate with the number 851324 is in Lucy Anyango Onyango's name. Lucy died in June 2003 at the Kisumu District Hospital, just a year after retrenchment, but she was presented by lawyer Eliakim Owala as client number 22. This is a permit for the burial of Jennifer Usidembego, who died in 2015 at the age of 42. She was born in Hamisi, Vihiga County. At Eliakim Owala and Company Advocates, she was their client number 146. And there is more.
I mean, the truth must be there. How much Lake Basin did pay out for all these refugees? And advocate, how did he distribute this money? Because everybody, maybe some 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, they're having different dues. And they're having different dues because of some of them are earning good money, some are lower money.
Sasa si watulipe pesa, hakuna shida, watupatie tu pesa, kwa maana hata sisi tuko na shida. Tunanyeshewa, penye tuliwacha mvua inanyesha kwa manyumba, watoto hawajasoma vizuri na pesa ziko. Si wangetupea tusomeshie watoto ama tujengee kanyumba hivi tukae ndani na watoto. Kukula kwa watoto ni shida. Na hata ukiwafuata zaidi kulala kwa watoto tena ni shida. Ukifuata penye wanalala utapata ni shida tu. Wangesaidia hao mayatima nao tena kesho wanaweza shika tena dalili ya hao kama wako. Unajua wakisoma zaidi tena hao watakuwa tena manager kama hao. Ama walingine watoke ndani walimu. Sasa unaona hiyo kipawa ya watoto inakufia ndani kwa ajili ya kosa kusoma. Na pesa ziko za kusomeshia watoto.
I visited the Lake Basin Development Authority headquarters in Kisumu. I presented our findings to Raymond Omolo along with details of the multi-million shilling fraudulent scheme reportedly masterminded in his office.
I, Raymond Vicky Ojwang Omolo.
At the time, Omolo, who is now the Interior Principal Secretary, was the LBDA's Managing Director. He denied being a part of or having knowledge of any conspiracy. He also denied ever participating in a meeting with Clifford Otieno in which the said conspiracy was discussed. he described the process as legal, legitimate, absolving himself and the authority from any wrongdoing.
Nothing could be further from the truth, because I only, or as an institution, we only respond to procedural issues. So we only go to court when we've been taken to court, or we only go to court when we know that someone has trespassed against us. But by and large, at least for the period I've been in office, we have never gone to court out of our own volition. We've gone to court either to defend a matter that is already ongoing, or to defend a new matter that someone has taken the institution to court on.
We further presented our findings to Michael Okuk in Oyugis, Homa Bay County. Okuk works as LBDA's acting legal manager.
As we speak, Mr. Brian, Mr. Obuya, all of that money which was calculated, which was due to them, Lake Basin has paid it all. Dr. Raymond Omolo looked for this money from the exchequer under the pending bills, and he was given this money and they were paid all. In fact, they should be very happy that Dr. Raymond Omolo went out of himself. All other MDs have been trying to get this money for these people, but they were defeated. But I don't know how he went and he got this money and these people were paid. That is my happiness. That's all our retrenchees have now gotten their money. I will not shy to say that this is the position of one of somebody who we are working with, and he got himself in his own problem, Clifford Obiero, and he resigned from work. And when he resigned, he said we will get to know who he is. I think these are his own machinations and mechanisms of maligning my name and maligning the name of the MD, pulling all these things. Well, the whole exercise is very correct and precise. We started it even when he was there. He knew these calculations, even him, he did them. But I don't know why he's kind of trying to divert attention by lying to the retrenchees that there's no more money for them when there's nothing more for them, apart from what had been calculated. We have very qualified accountants to calculate who calculated this thing and calculated with the advocates' accountants. So there's no way you would say that I was doing this and this.
That meeting you're talking about, there is nothing like that. Of course, Cook as my legal manager, acting legal manager, there will be several meetings, and I do a lot of meetings almost every 2 weeks at the maximum with my senior management or the people who report to me. But there was never any particular moment that I sat down with Clifford, the former employee, and Mr. Cook to discuss the issue of the retrenchees. Not at all.
Raymond Omolo admitted to being aware of the dispute between Eliakim Owala, the former employees, LBDA, and a slice of the millions in the pockets of a few people.
I'm aware there are a few complaints that came up from about 2 or 3 of the retrenchees, and one of their complaints was that whatever they had received was not what they expected. And of course the other complaint was that Owala was representing them, yet they never gave him the instructions. As a representative of the authority, there is very little, or actually there is nothing I would do about it, because from my point of view, he was representing all the retrenchees that were listed and that their matter was adjudicated in court.
Lake Basin is a party to this case, and even the file is written Lake Basin versus Okech and 107 others. Nobody has ever come from Lake Basin to give the information that we are asking for. So you see, there's something being hidden.
What is causing all the controversy at the Lake Basin Development Authority among the retrenchees and the advocates is the answer to this question. How much is each of the former members of staff entitled to? Most of them have even stopped asking Eliakim Owala the most pertinent question, why he went to court without the instructions. They just want the money that was awarded by the court in their names.
They are trying to hide the figure. They don't want us to know how much was released or was ordered by court to be given to us as a retirement benefit. And you see, this thing has costed us a lot. Like, from those years, I'm still in town, I'm paying rent, I'm waiting for money that is not forthcoming, and somebody is enjoying that money to frustrate me.
Several retrenchees began flocking the LBDA head offices in Kisumu after learning about the scheme.
Some of them had been coming before and saying that, okay, when are you paying us? We have gone to Kulecho Musomba. When are you paying Kulecho Musomba? We have gone to Owala. When are you paying us through Owala? My position has ever been the same with them. If we pay Owala, since now we are working with you, I will tell you.
But that was not all that Michael O'Cook, the acting legal manager, told them. Several phone calls are recorded between the persons mentioned in this story and O'Cook. As more retrenchees learned about the scandal, LBDA began searching for beneficiaries and paying them. From Owala's family bank salary account, NTV's investigations unit has established that 50,000 shillings was sent to the beneficiaries. Fred Obuare Oduk received 50,000 shillings 8 minutes after talking to Owala on 26th of May 2020. Oduk has been paid a total of 227,000 shillings as of November 2022. All monies have been paid via M-Pesa.
Until after we had this money was there, that is when people are now being informed. But we didn't know about the case, we didn't know even when it happened. And these are some of the things we've been asking. Can you show us what the court passed? Yeah, and none of them has ever been given to us. Yeah. Even the documents from Lake Basin, we've never seen them. You're just being told this is your money, this is your money.
Maurice Kalari Odero also received the 50,000 shillings on May 14th, 2020 at 6:31 p.m. Owala says he was entitled to 350,000. This figure contradicts with an internal document given to us by Mr. Raymond Omolo that recommended that Odero be awarded 656,000 shillings. Odero, on the other hand, is demanding up to 1.6 million from the state agency through independent advocates.
I got a phone call. I was at home around midday from a strange number, and he introduced himself as Mr. Owala. Mr. Owala told me that he is an advocate. Yes, he had received some money for retrenchees and he was paying on behalf of Lake Basin. I said, okay, fine, that's great. Yeah. We just overheard that somebody was representing us. Now, if you have the money, what's the position? He told me, no, I want to pay you some money, but not all. What I got from Lake Basin was just a peanut, but I want to distribute it for everybody. So I want to send you 50,000 shillings. My brother, by that time I was building my house. I needed money. So I said, okay, fine, send it forth. He sent me 50,000 shillings. Then he called to confirm. Then I told him, yes, I've received 50,000 from family bank account.
Marion received 2 tranches of 100,000 each. The first batch was sent to her on May 12, 2020 at 3:31 p.m. according to money transfer documents in possession of this investigations unit. Owala wired the next batch of 100,000 Kenya shillings to Marion on the 30th of June 2020 at 9:45 a.m. She was informed she was eligible for 278,000, but she says the lawyer provided no explanation of how he arrived at the figure.
And up to date, there is no document he has given us. At least now we want that document, at least to show that we have been in communication with him for this payment and with this, according to that case.
Back on the Nairobi-Nakuru highway at Beryl Ogenyo's nursery, she says on her part, she received nothing even though she was in contact with the lawyer. There was a condition to receive any amount of money.
Ati niende nitoe jina yangu huko kwa kotini ndio nipatie hiyo pesa. Sasa venye nilisikia hivyo sikuongea naye tena.
Some of these victims engaged the firm of Lugano and Lugano advocates to act on their behalf to uncover the secrets between their purported legal representatives and the Lake Basin Development Authority. 6 petitioners sued Owala through lawyer Lugano Odhialo. It is here where Beryl was asked to expunge her name and sign a document verifying that Owala owed her nothing more in order to receive any money from the advocate. So heated has been the case against Owala that the High Court in Kisumu at some point issued an arrest warrant against the advocate. The court ordered the officer in charge of Kondele police station to find and arrest Owala for contempt of court. Owala had skipped court sessions in some occasions where he was confronted by difficult questions surrounding the payments. But just where did advocate Eliakim Owala get the money to pay some of the retrenchees during the month of March to July 2020? This question is important because Raymond Omolo wrote to Treasury on the 14th of August 2020 requesting access to 152 million shillings to pay recurrent bills, including the retrenchees.
Yeah.
It's a clerk from
Omolo's letter was written about 5 months after the court ruling. We have this letter written to the managing director 10 days later on the 25th of August 2020 approving his request. But the M-Pesa transactions to retrenchees were happening as early as March 2020, just a month after the contentious court ruling. So, did Owala pay the retrenchees with his own money? So deep and urgent was the scheme that the LBDA was already disbursing the millions of shillings to the lawyer, but where did the money come from? After 2 years of being unavailable, not answering phone calls and choosing to remain silent, advocate Eliakim Owala on a random Monday in November 2022 called back.
Brian, what you do?
Yeah.
I've given strict instructions to a woman.
Yes.
Deal with it, and I've told him we deal officially with the letter from your company, from the where you work for.
Okay.
Then we'll give you all you want.
Okay.
I've given Mr. Uma that, but we deal officially.
Okay.
Charles Ouma has been representing Eliakim Owala in court in the case fronted by 6 petitioners. Owala, for some reason, wants questions directed at him answered by Ouma. And so I began by asking Ouma how Owala went to court without instructions.
From the information that I have seen, he had proper instructions to act. Definitely the 108 people did not instruct him directly. They came as a team through one of their own. Mr. Owala doesn't know how they resolved to pick one of their own to represent them, but the person who now came with the formal instructions is Mr. Samuel Okech Opondo. And he signed an instructions note saying that he had the authority of the other colleagues to instruct Mr. Owala to act on their behalf. But beyond that, Mr. Owala also had direct dealings with many of them. They would call to find out about the progress of the case independently of Mr. Samuel Okech Opondo. And when the payments were being made, they came now individually. At that point now, the law doesn't permit Mr. Samuel Okech Opondo to collect the dues on their behalf. So they came as individuals. So Mr. Owala finds it a bit odd that persons who actually came and signed for their dues from him would say that they didn't instruct him. Because the question is, why then would they come to collect their dues from him if he had no instruction to act? And all of them have been paid, and there's documentation for that purpose.
And then I asked Ouma to help us trace Samuel Okech Opondo, the man Owala claims instituted the case on behalf of everyone else, yet none of the 19 people I have met talked to and interviewed ever met Samuel Okech Opondo during their days at LBDA or with regard to this case.
The challenge that Mr. Wala would have is that any communication he has about the identity and whereabouts of Mr. Samuel Okech Opondo would be communication given to him for purposes of prosecuting this case, and it would be covered by advocate-client confidentiality and can only be disclosed with the permission of Samuel Okech Opondo. So the complication you have is that I would have to send you to go and find Mr. Samuel Okech Opondo to give me permission to disclose that information, in which event it would be unnecessary because you would have found him anyway.
I further asked Ouma why the court order requiring a computation for every retrenchee has never been filed, and what criteria then his client Eliakim Owala was using to disburse the money in the absence of such computation.
No, I didn't say they didn't do a computation. They did, and we have it. But then there is the second question about whether or not it was filed. If the court order requires that they file, I'm sure they would. Perhaps they haven't. It's not uncommon for people not to do something the court asks them to do, not maliciously, not with intent not to defy a court, perhaps oversight. There could be many explanations.
The next few minutes of this report begin to answer, at least in part, the question of where the millions of shillings went. Let me introduce you to Tobias Ocheng Owino. Here in Oyugis, he is famously known as Japolo. The man is a contractor.
Nikaenda nikamripoti kwa polisi.
He claims to have been given millions of shillings in cash by one of the men at the center of this saga to construct a house for him before the duo fall out over the payments.
Tulipoanza nilimuuliza, aliniuliza wakati nilikuwa namjengea hizo nyumba zake za kumchenjia roof. Nilimuuliza akaniambia hii pesa ako na 500 tu peke yake, yana kama anaweza kujenga foundation peke yake. Lufu 500. Nikamwambia ni sawa. Sasa after kumalizia hii kuchange hii roofing zake, kubadilisha mabati, akanipeleka Oyugis. Kunipeleka Oyugis, sasa tukaanza hii kazi. Sasa muda vile kulikuwa tunaendelea, akanielezea hii pesa alikuwa amelipwa, kuna vile alisimamishwa kazi, kesi ikaenda, akipatikana yeye hana makosa, akasuu wale. Sasa walimlipa pesa, ndio hiyo pesa alikuwa anatumia hii nayo ya kujenga. Sasa vile tulikuwa tunaendelea kujenga, sasa ikifika mahali tulikuwa tunataka pesa, hii pesa ikisa accumulate. Sasa aliniandikia message, nyumba si yake na mwenye nyumba anataka ID ya mtu, signature ya mtu, telephone number ya kila mtu alikuwa anafanya kwa site. After about 6 months tukishafanya kazi.
Tobias has reported the matter to EACC at the Homa Bay offices and sworn an affidavit over these claims. The contractor says he reported the matter over fear of being arrested if the story about the house and the millions of shillings handled in cash ever refused to fall in place.
Alikuwa anataka kuniingiza kwa shida fulani, lakini mimi sikujua. Ndio wakati niligundua ilibidi niende ni report.
The man had told the contractor he had 500,000 shillings to build a house. In his affidavit, Tobias says that the man later changed his story and said the house belongs to an athlete by the name William Tanui. He told Tobias that Tanui had won millions of shillings in international races and was building a house to retire. That Tanui was his in-law. In the history of Kenyan athletics, this investigations unit has found there has never been an athlete by that name, William Tanui.
Alikuwa amesema vile mimi ndio nakuanga karibu, yeye ako kazi, mimi ndio nika available kupatikana, niweke tu jina yangu. Kwa event retreat whatever, niweke jina yangu. Juu yeye anasema yeye atakuwa kazi na mimi ndio niko karibu. Sasa hata tukienda naye kununua material ananiambia niandike jina yangu, documents zangu.
At the construction site in Oyugis, Workers here are under instruction to take pictures of any suspicious people who come asking questions. The 5-story building has since been marked for demolition by NEMA. The saga between the retrenchees, the LBDA and Eliakim Owala was not the first. There was yet another piece of this puzzle with the second law firm, Kulecho Musomba Advocates. Unlike Owala, Joseph Musomba received clear instructions from his 45 clients in 2018. The 45 former LBDA staff members asked Musomba to represent them in a suit against the parastatal, arguing that they were retrenched using the wrong circular. We will come in contact with one of them in Kindu Bay shortly. The problem with the Kulecho Musomba case, as with Owala, is that the clients here also complain that the law firm never disclosed the amounts to which each of them was entitled. Samuel Okech Atieno is the face of the case against LBDA and Kulecho Musomba Advocates.
I left Lake Basin when I was an accounts assistant.
Samuel worked for the Lake Basin Development Authority for 16 years.
He didn't show us.
He says Musomba, their advocate, has not specifically declared the amount of money they are supposed to receive.
First he was paid 2.5 million, which he claimed to us was to pay auctioneers. We still yet to see evidence of these payments to auctioneers. The second payment made to him was for 5 million, which he paid to 40 people at an average cost of 65,000. which if you calculate will total to 2.6 million. He remained with 2.4 million. That money is not explained how it was used. The final payment which was made to him, which he has refused to tell us which figure it was deposited into a joint account with the Lake Basin. We have not seen any evidence of the amount which was paid, how it was utilized, how much was paid. So he has left us in darkness in everything. What he keeps on telling us is that he has paid us all the money he was paid, but he has failed to give us the evidence of what he was paid and how he has paid it.
The lawyer did not just say these things orally. Also, he wrote to Samuel Okech Atieno saying his firm received only 21 million to pay the 45 retrenchees.
There is a foul play in this because the lawyer has refused to give us figures. He has refused to explain to us even how he arrived at 316,000 which he paid me. He cannot explain to me from the figure which he originally showed me and the figure which he is finally paying.
When I inquired about Kulecho Musomba, Dr. Raymond Omolo said he was paid about 30 million shillings.
So the total money paid to Owala was about 81 or so million for the 108 retrenchees. Then the total of what was paid to Kulecho was around 29 million.
Kulecho Musomba, I think about 31 million. The one for Owala, 73 million.
The finance manager's report to the board indicated that Kulecho Musomba received 32 million shillings. And then the law firm says it received only 21 million shillings.
We agreed under the consent was 29 million that was to be payable. What happened is that after December, Lake Basin, for reasons that they best know, appealed against that consent judgment. And when they appealed against that consent judgment, they demanded that we scale down that consent from 29 million to 21 million. So because these people had suffered for long, I called a meeting with them and we agreed that for the sake of not wasting much more time, we take the 21 million. What was paid to my firm was that entire amount of 21 million, which was then disbursed to all these 45 claimants according to what each one was entitled to.
The whereabouts of over 10 million shillings are clearly in contention, and Mr. Musomba does not hesitate to admit as much.
The depositing of the money into a joint account was simply a requirement of the law. It is provided for so that then people do not waste time when they cannot pay. Once they pay that back as our 21 million, I think the rest of the money that was in the joint account is perhaps its destiny. I cannot say for certain. What I know is that we took our 21 million and disbursed it amongst the claimants. The balance that was in the joint account, it was taken back to the advocate. That is all we can say.
The money was paid to a joint account owned by Kulecho Musomba Advocates and LBDA Advocate Otieno Yogo Ojuro and Company Advocates. This raised questions on why the money would be wired to a joint account in a case that was solved by consent.
The depositing of the money into a joint account was simply a requirement of the law. It is provided for so that then people do not waste time when they cannot pay.
Meanwhile, only the LBDA's advocates deny that 32 million shillings was wired to that joint account. For avoidance of doubt, Mr. Yogo, what I'm hearing from you is that Mr. Musomba was paid 21 million and not 29 or 32 million shillings.
Yes. 21,154,106.
Yeah.
106.
So that my next question to you, Wakili, would be, and I know a bank statement would help, but why then do you think the head of finance at the LBDA will not know that? Because in her report, she has insisted that the both of you were paid 32 million shillings, which was wired through that specific bank account. And this is your client we are talking about. This is your client. Why does your client say that they paid you people 32 million shillings?
You know, surely, Ms. Brian.
Yeah.
Me, I'm telling you what I have and what is in the court file and what we did. So I would not answer about somebody else, what somebody has written or said. Do I?
Once they paid that back as our 21 million, I think the rest of the money that was in the joint account is perhaps its destiny. I cannot say for certain. What I know is that we took our 21 million and disbursed it amongst the claimants. The balance that was in the joint account, it was taken back to the advocate. That is all we can say.
And if the LBDA appealed the decision, how come the state agency continues to state that it paid 32 million shillings 2 years later?
Out of this,
by the time we took our further investigation to Kisumu law courts in November 2022, we had found no notice of appeal or file for any of the cases.
In the NAM file, which is number 4.
But Advocate Geoffrey Yogo insisted there was an appeal, even giving what he said was the case number.
Everything is listed in number 404. The appeal file,
yes.
If you want to know the appeal file, is a appeal number ELR appeal. That's Kisumu Employment and Labor Relations Court appeal number 9 of 2020.
On perusing the court files, we found the number belongs to a case file between Ibrahim Otieno Odor and 4 others versus Spectre International Limited. It has nothing to do with the questions related to the Lake Basin Development Authority. In their letter to the retrenchees, Kulecho Musomba Advocate says, and I quote, "We negotiated for you a second golden handshake," end of quote. By indicating that there was a negotiation, the advocate seemed to be implicating the LBDA in the double payment conspiracy.
You know, Brian, a consent recorded in court is always a compromise. It is not a court deciding, it is the parties sitting down and saying that I have agreed, we have agreed, and they go to court and tell the court that we have agreed. In the process of agreeing, if an advocate is actually representing the best interest of the institution, then he cannot accept a double payment.
All retrenchees had already been paid a golden handshake of 40,000 each by their admission and copies of the 2002 payroll in our possession. Musomba does not deny the double payment.
Part of what we had prayed for was an enhancement of the golden handshake that had been previously paid. But luckily, Lake Basin did not pick up any issue that this handshake had been paid before, and these people were therefore paid a second handshake. Obviously, perhaps it was not due to them, but since we had prayed for it and it had been granted and there was no objection by Lake Basin, the same was deemed payable, and after extensive negotiations with Lake Basin, it was finally released to these employees.
This is a matter that, as a citizen, you should have reported a long while ago.
I personally wrote a letter to the Directorate of Criminal Investigation, and then immediately thereafter the DCI called me. Omweri from DCI called me and advised me not to give any information to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption because they are handling that matter. Actually went further and stated that there are attempts. He stated that there are attempts from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Kisumu to transfer that matter and take that matter from them. And that is seeing some foul play that is going on. And you know, as a person who is centered to this issue and who is complaining of some risk issue, you have to be concerned. I allowed the DCI to proceed with the matter. Anytime he called me, he wanted information, I gave. And even in that interview, when he was advising me not to give information, even confirmed to me that he is at a very advanced stages. As we speak, I've been texting him at an interval of every 1 month, asking him how far. And he's been telling me I am still investigating.
NTV Investigates is in possession of an internal computation that was neither filed in court nor shared with the retrenchees, which suggests that someone like Marion was supposed to receive some 595,000 shillings, while Maurice Kalari Odero should have received 695,000. It is not clear why the document or any other computation has never been filed in court as ordered by Justice Ndumanderi on the 10th day of February 2020. With the exception of a slow probe that never was, this letter from the DCI to the Registrar Kisumu Law Courts is missing from the court file. John Karaoke, at the time heading the DCI Investigations Bureau, had written the letter to the court registrar in Kisumu requesting for documents in the case against Owala. Ordinarily, that letter would be in the prosecution file, but it is inexplicable how the file could have disappeared in such a high public interest case. Justice Stephen Radido, who has been hearing very interesting things in his court, stated in one of his rulings that despite that letter annexed by the defense, the letter, though addressed to the deputy registrar, is missing from the file. Something is clearly amiss in the file.
DCI requested for information, which we have provided, and I'm sure they probably got somewhere and they have a reason either to continue or to say that this is just stories. When EACC wrote to me, I told them DCI are handling the same matter. How do we proceed? And they came back and told me, fine, if they're handling it, we don't need to get involved.
Lake basins are rot. There are a lot of funny things that have been done to us, but our interest is money. If they were really for us, we'd like to see these cases come up, because we provided them with evidence, documents that have all that we are stating here.
I will say the integrity issues, they are not very good. Yeah, just after I left, the manager audit resigned. Lucky to them, the manager audit did not maybe tell them the reason why he was resigning. But if you ask me, and this I'm stating with a lot of authority, there were issues, because you will issue a very honest report on whatever is happening, and before maybe it goes out, for whatever reasons you are being asked to ratify that report, to read in a particular way.
It would be totally unfair to crucify me on account of a disagreement between an advocate and their client.
Do you find it strange that an advocate or an officer or an MD can authorize payment entered by consent, whereby retrenchees retrenched in the year 2002? Retrenchees retrenched in 2002 and who filed a case in 2020 are being awarded interest from the year 2000.
Not even 2000.
Not even 2002. And in the year 2000, from the year 2000 and the year 2002, Brian, they were on salary, full salary. Actually, even the circulars for retrenchment had not even been implemented. Meaning they have been given payments and interests. It is a double payment when they were still in service. And then it is not the court that has decided this. It is the parties that have agreed that let us award these people this interest. And then it happens that this money has not been received by the intended beneficiaries.
The nature of this scandal is complex. The slow pace of investigations has been unnerving for the hundreds of former employees who now languish in poverty.
Brian, this one is also important. In the same year, authorities' motor vehicle was towed by an auctioneer. A case in Muhoroni here, a land matter, that they lost and appealed severally. And the managing director was not able to pay Kenya shillings 1.4 million until a Land Cruiser was actually towed and sold by an auctioneer the same year. Then you tell us that, you see, there are pending bills that we need to urgent. There was a court order and this was urgent. Who was executing the petition? There were no auctioneers in the petition. They agreed. And in the same year, at the same time, I can confirm to you, Nyalwoyo auctioneers sold the authority motor vehicle for a debt of 1.4 million. A motor vehicle valued at 5.6 million. Brian, that is an office I could not sit in. I know I'm going out of whatever you asked me, but I am just giving a comparative scenario to just explain to you the fact that there was more than meets the eye in the deal. It was a very exceptional deal.
To date, the living wait in vain for help to arrive someday, with those who died while waiting yet to truly rest in peace. Brian Obuya, NTV investigates.
Intriguing findings there by NTV's Brian Obuya on dead men suing. We have some feedback from you. Mike, you say this is disheartening. Families suffering at the expense of some greedy people at the helm of the authority. Speedy investigations need to be launched after this expose. Nice piece of work. We also have Sir Albert. You say the greed for money out here is too much. Mwangi, you say these people are talking about millions like it's pocket change.